data. Good morning and welcome. My name is Marianne Griebler. Whether the Unitarian Church of Evanston is your spiritual home, or you are seeking comfort and connection in uncertain times, we are grateful you are with us. We are an inclusive and welcoming community, seeking truth and love and striving to nurture the human spirit for a world made whole. We are guided by our principles and values, which remind us in every moment and through every challenge that each of us is worthy of love and that we are all connected through the vast and beautiful web of existence. Together, let us remember our kinship with one another, and may we hold one another in heart and mind with tenderness and careful attention. There are many links of connection in the description below the YouTube live stream, including the order of service credits, ways to support our mission, and how to be added to our email newsletter list. We have a few announcements this morning. We are happy to be returning to the sanctuary on February 13th for in-person worship and faith formation. Our virtual live stream will continue as well. If you have questions or concerns, please reach out to Reverend Eileen or Reverend Susan. Today, following the service, we will have a time for kinship on Zoom, followed by our faith formation for all ages. This week, we will engage as a community in a variety of spiritual practices. We'll have prayer for UUs with Reverend Eileen, Tai Chi with Renee Gatsis, yoga with Doug Erickson, and an Imbolc ritual led by Taryn Seawright. All of these will take place virtually, and the links are in the description below and in the newsletter. Now, please get your chalices ready and set a place for yourself and your family as we gather together in beloved community.
Good morning. Our opening reading is an excerpt from Welcome and Listen by Natalie Maxwell Fenimore, an African-American Unitarian Universalist minister and religious educator. Though you have broken your vows 1,000 times, come, yet again, come. These words of Rumi speak to the welcome that is at the heart of Unitarian Universalism. We seek to be a home for all who desire our company. We seek to make a welcome for all those in search of our good news. Come, come, little children, teens, young adults, adults and elders. Come, families in great diversity. Come to this loving home and safe harbor, but not to find a place to escape the world. This is a community of engagement and of creativity. We come together to create boldly, dangerously. We must create the beloved community with an awareness of how difficult it is, because it is hard work. It is work that challenges us to bring our whole selves and engage deeply for the long haul. To be the beloved community, we must know that we care for each other as beloveds, not merely in the abstract, but in the particular, in the personal. Wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, can we share our stories of pain and joy, memory and hope? Can we be beloved to one another? Our ears open to hear each other's voices, our eyes ready to see each other clearly, our hearts enlarged to hold each other's pain and joy, our arms entwined in embrace as we journey. Don't give up. Don't stop listening to one another. Welcome to worship.
Come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come.
Come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, whoever you're leaving, 'cause it's no caravan of despair. 'Cause it's no caravan of despair. 'Cause it's no caravan of despair. 'Cause it's no
The Unitarian Church of Evanston resides on the traditional homelands of the Council of Three Fires, the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations. This land was recorded as being transferred from the local Potawatomi community to the U.S. government in 1829, and then was sold to white settlers. After decades of violent encroachment by French, British, and then U.S. American settlers, the Potawatomi community had no choice but to sell before they were forcibly removed west of the Mississippi River. The Chicagoland area is now home to one of the largest and most diverse urban Native communities in the U.S. Our faith calls us to name these realities with honor and respect as one small effort toward finding greater accountability, deeper relationship, and mutuality with contemporary Indigenous communities. For the land we use as sacred space, for the animals and plants that have been sustained by this land, and for our ancestors and descendants who are and will become part of this earth. I do have a correction. Diane and Ellie are leading mindfulness and meditations today rather than yoga. Thank you, Diane and Ellie. As the yoga group that meets on Wednesday mornings comes up to light our chalice, symbol of our living tradition, please join us in saying these words. Bringing attention to our bodies, we pause. Lengthening and deepening our breath, we pause. Letting go of the clutter in the mind to bring focus to this moment, we pause. Developing thoughtfulness and mindfulness, we pause. May our chalice flame guide our way on. Namaste. Now please join in saying the words of our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Before our hymn, if you haven't already, please introduce yourself in the chat and take a moment to greet one another.
Hey, Eileen, did I ever tell you that I used to work at a clothing store for moms-to-be and their babies, about 33 years ago?
No, what was that like?
Well, for the most part, it was pretty awesome, especially those cute little babies.
Aw.
Yeah, well, except for this one time when I really messed up.
Uh-oh, what happened?
Yeah, well, this mom came in with a baby in a stroller. Baby looked like they were about 4 months old. Cute little thing. And the mom was holding up this onesie that kind of looked like a tuxedo, the kind of thing that a guy would wear to a wedding. And I said to the mom, "Oh, what a cute little boy." Oops. The mom just glared at me. "Oh, it's a girl." I was really embarrassed. Yeah. Well, since then, of course, I've learned a lot more about gender identity, and I wouldn't do that again, but...
Yeah, that must have been embarrassing. I can relate.
Yeah, to say the least. My mom used to say, "Think before you speak." Yeah, I guess I didn't learn that lesson very well. Have you ever put your foot in your mouth?
Oh yeah, lots of times. But I've learned a handy little trick that helps a little bit. It's called THINK.
Oh, what's think?
Well, it's an acronym I use to help me remember to think before I speak. Each letter stands for a question you ask yourself, and it's important to ask these questions in order. It goes like this. The first thing to think about is whether what I'm about to say is truthful. So T is for true. And then, if the answer is no, stop right there. If it's yes, then move on to the next letter. H, is it helpful? Is what I'm going to say helpful to the person? I stands for, is it inspiring? Is it uplifting? Is it positive? You know, that old saying, if you can't say something nice, don't say it at all. N is for, is it necessary? Is it important and needed, or is it better left unsaid? And K stands for kind. Is it kind? Is what I'm about to say mean-spirited, or is it kind? Sometimes we have to say things hard that are still truthful and helpful and inspiring and necessary, but we can also think about ways to say them with kindness.
That's a great way for me to remember not to speak before I think.
Actually, you can ask yourself one more question.
And what question is that?
Is it the right time? Sometimes what we want to say is true, and it's helpful and inspiring and necessary and kind, but it's just not the right time to say it. Sometimes it's better to wait a bit, and maybe not even just a few seconds, but a few days, weeks, months, maybe even years.
Whoa, I can be patient, but I don't know if I can be that patient. I'll have to give it a try. Thanks for sharing your tip to think before I speak. This will come in really handy here at UCE too as we look at our covenant of engagement. Imagine what it would be like if everyone here used think before they spoke.
Imagine. Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.
Each Sunday, we hold space for the joys and sorrows of those that are gathered here in beloved community, honoring the struggles and the triumphs, the brokenness and wholeness that is part of the human experience. If you have a joy or a sorrow that you would like shared with this community, feel free to add it to the chat in our YouTube live stream. You can submit it through our Google form found on our homepage, or you can simply send me an email. These are the joys and sorrows that have been shared today. Andy Fisher shares that for the second time in 50 years, this winter, I put on my new skates and made it around Arrington Lagoon, only falling down once. Good job, Andy. And Ellie Feddersen shares that her 90-year-old Swedish stepmother fell out of bed and broke her hip. She is doing well after surgery, but her daughters in Sweden are troubled that they cannot visit their memory-impaired mother and are having trouble finding placement in rehab and assisted living. That is all that's been shared out loud, but we know that there are many joys and sorrows held in our hearts and in our minds that may be too tender to say out loud. This is a sacred space where we offer these as part of the practice of beloved community. Together we hold these and we expand our celebrations and lessen the burden of our grief. So I invite you to join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation, Settle yourself into your bodies. Pay attention to your breath. Feel connected to one another, to the earth, to all that is, through the spirit of life that moves through us, between us, and beyond us. Source of creating, sustaining, and transforming love, we offer in this moment gratitude for the breath of life moving through us. We are thankful for the beauty of the earth wherever it is found. In the sparkling snow, the stillness of winter, in the comfort of community. We bring to the surface the sorrows we hold at bay so that we can keep going, keep doing what needs to be done. We rest here in this moment, offering our sadness, our loss, our fears, our anger, our confusion, with trust that we do not need to be ruled by these, but we also do not need to disparage or erase these emotions. Help us, Spirit of Life, to metabolize the feelings in ways that reduce harm to ourselves and to others. Guide us in our desire to contribute to the resilience and healing of the world. May we be humble and forgiving in our striving. May we discover with courage. May we discover strength and wisdom which already live within, among, and beyond us. May we hold in compassion and tenderness all those who are suffering, and may our actions bring real peace. Amen.
As we say in our covenant each Sunday, service is our law. UCE is called by our mission, values, and principles to contribute to our community, to form accountable partnerships, and to express our gratitude through giving. Today's offering will be shared with Mother and Child Alliance, which reinforces a safety net during and after pregnancy for moms, babies, and their providers to prevent HIV and other serious, costly pediatric infections in newborns. And here is more information about their work.
Good morning. I'm Ann Statton, Executive Director of the Mother and Child Alliance. Did you know that we can prevent the transmission of HIV from pregnant persons to their newborns greater than 99% of the time? All it takes is medication in pregnancy and medication to the newborn for the first month of life. However, putting all those pieces together getting identified, knowing your status, getting connected to expert HIV, OB care, and pediatric infectious disease care, along with the specialty hospitals and all of the support systems that exist, is no small thing. We work specifically with low-income people of color, predominantly Black people who are pregnant, helping to connect them with services in an atmosphere of non-judgment and harm reduction. We know that our clients were among the most impacted by the coronavirus and the COVID-19 situation here in the United States. They were the most impacted by the lockdowns, by job losses from having frontline jobs, and by the digital divide, not having computers, not having Wi-Fi, internet access, so that not only that their children can go to schools, but that they can also be connected with the outside world or even participate in remote visits with their clinicians. Our organization is a face-to-face, by your side, hand-holding type of service that approaches you without judgment in relation to any condition or situation that you might be in related to housing, your income, your mental health, addiction, dependency, community and domestic violence, all the rest. Thank you so much for helping us to meet this very important need.
You may text to give, mail in a check, or give from our website. If you write a check, please indicate in the memo line if your check is for the shared offering, your pledge, your capital campaign gift, or some other gift to our mission. Please give as generously as you are able, and may what you give bring you joy. Our first reading this morning is from the chapter on covenant from Fluent in Faith by Jean Harrison Newiger, and a second reading by Tandy Rogers. The genius of our faith, the lifeblood of our faith, is that we honor the bonds of community more than the bonds of intellectual assent. We hold our relationships as more sacred than any system of belief. We make promises to one another about the ways we will be in relationship and the ways in which we will pursue our religious journey together. This is covenant. Children make promises and extract promises from us and from their friends all the time. But a promise is often a one-sided pledge. A covenant is something more. It is a mutual promise. And there are no contingencies, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It is simply the way we agreed to be friends. We agreed to be together in community, even if we don't agree on all the details. We won't pack up our marbles and go home when we don't get our way. We promise to stay in the room, to stay a part of the conversation, a part of the beloved community, as best we can, no matter what. A covenant is not a contract. It is based on something deeper and more worthy than rules of law. It is based on our human faithfulness. It carries not the force of law, but the force of persuasion. We honor a covenant not because we have to, but because we want to. And a violation is serious not because there will be punishment, but because it's a break of trust, a breach of faith. A rich component of covenant is the gift of forgiveness. To make promises calls forth the best in us, but we are human and we make mistakes. Promises get broken, and so we try again. Covenantal faith does not ask us to be perfect. It asks us to look at our mistakes and shortcomings and to try earnestly to correct them. Our second reading is from Tandy Rogers, UU clergy, spiritual director, and religious educator. We are the people of covenant. We practice covenant. And when I say practice, because do we ever perfect it? No. Those mistakes, those steps away from right relations, are actually blessed opportunities for faith formation. I'm not interested in a pretty covenant with all the right words that sits on a dusty shelf. Give me a covenant with smudge marks and coffee stains and marked out words and added words and tear stains. Give me a covenant that makes us stretch for a lifetime and into the next generation. People, it is not our principles that make us Unitarian Universalists. It is our covenant among the people within our congregation, among the congregations in our area, in our wider association, and with the whole world. Our covenant is with the ancestors who came before and the people yet to come. It is with the here and now and the transcendent. It is with our ultimate source.
skies. Love calls us on. Love calls us on. Words and deeds of those before us, who wake and hear to keep us strong, who lend our voices in the chorus, of creation's living song. Courage bids us lift our eyes forward to the shining skies. Hope calls us on. Hope calls us on. Hope calls us on. Loyal guides in love and duty. Loyal guides with a trusted lead us. Blessed are they whose inward beauty. Blessed are they. The path of truth shines. The honor is their earthly pride. Honor is by their works we realize. Oh, faith calls us on. Faith calls us on. Faith calls us on. Faith calls us on. We have shared a radiant hour. We have shared truth has made us freedom and true, and the Spirit's gracious power. Spirit of grace, that yet shall stream with us, for good right the path before us lies. Bright is the path, heavens down we rise. Life calls us on. 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 Life calls us
I love hearing that piece again. Such joy. You may have noticed, or maybe you didn't, that my stole today looks a little different from the ones that I usually wear on Sundays. You might remember that this special stole was created during my installation in October. My friend and colleague Julica Herman de la Fuente told the story of the ancient practice of the Incas, still used today in Peru, of weaving bridges that span great chasms high over rushing rivers, bridges made entirely of grass and the power of community. To build these bridges, the grass is cut and pounded and rolled together into thick strands, and then the strands are braided together to form ropes, and then those ropes are braided to form thicker ropes. The ropes are then pulled and stretched to make them longer and stronger, and it takes the entire community working together for 3 days to weave and stretch and construct these grass bridges, strong enough to hold people and horses. But the bridge needs to be rewoven every year, and everyone needs to play their part. As Julika told the story at the installation service, she had several of you weave the strips of fabric together to form this stole, to mirror the weaving of the grass bridge. And I love how the stole has frayed and uneven edges. It's beautiful and strong in its imperfection, just like our covenant. And it serves as a reminder that our covenants are woven and rewoven again and again. And in that process of repair, of reweaving, community is made stronger and more resilient. When we wrote our covenant of engagement more than 10 years ago, we concluded it with the promise that together we would practice resilience and perseverance wherever we engage. We included these words because in our chosen faith, we know that the bonds that hold us together in community are voluntary. No one remains a part of a Unitarian Universalist congregation because they fear reprisal if they leave. There is no message of fire and brimstone here. Each of us is free to go or to stay, to engage or disengage, and each of us is responsible for being true to ourselves as we make those choices. Our commitment to each other and to living the values of Unitarian Universalism comes from a different source. It isn't fear or guilt. It is love that holds us together in covenant. That love that Dr. King taught us, love combined with power which manifests in transformative justice. When we wrote the words resilience and perseverance into our covenant of engagement in 2011, we were thinking of all the ways that it is easy to leave a Unitarian Universalist congregation when things don't go our way. We wrote them to encourage us to stay committed to repairing the bonds of kinship. We had no idea how much the world would need the practice of resilience and perseverance in 2020 and 2021. A functioning society relies on the integrity of our voluntary agreements with one another. Our democracy, commerce, language, all operate on the basis of the complex and mutually understood commitments. We demonstrate our faith and commitment to one another in countless ways every day without even really thinking about it. Yet there is so much that is eroding these presumed commitments and tearing at the fabric of our society. Our bonds to one another have been tested by the pandemic, by political unrest, by the virus-like spread of misinformation, economic disparity, and systemic racism. Many of the bonds between family members and friends across the political divide have ruptured, perhaps beyond repair. Many of us have lost connection with siblings or parents, friends, because we can't get over the chasm of difference in our worldviews or find agreement about basic facts. I am struggling to know how to build a bridge across the vast chasm that has emerged between one of my brothers and me. Truth be told, I'm struggling with whether I even want to bridge that chasm. What I do know is that we need to find ways to cross these divides, to build bridges and connect over the treacherous waters of division. The world is in such deep need of repair. The world needs communities like ours where we can practice resilience and perseverance in our engagement, to practice it here so that we can carry it out into the world. But so many of us are at the end of our spiritual ropes. How do we sustain ourselves and each other so that we can keep showing up in covenant to build those bridges and help make the world whole? Father Gregory Boyle, the Jesuit priest who founded Homeboy Industries, the gang rehabilitation and re-entry program in Los Angeles that has transformed so many lives from despair to hope, talks about how to sustain our spirits in shared ministry. He teaches that there is no saving the world without savoring it. If we set out to save the world, or even to save one person without attending to our spirits, we will inevitably use up our reserves. We will lose hope. We will succumb to despair. If we seek to transform the world without transforming ourselves, we have already missed the point. But if we set out to savor the world, that is to love it, love ourselves and love one another with tenderness and joy, not only are we more fully sustained, but our efforts toward more liberation, justice, and wholeness and healing can emerge from that place and that practice. Father Boyle didn't set out to save the young men who were involved in gangs in LA. Instead, he focused on building kinship. And through that practice of cultivating kinship, peace, justice, and equity became a little more real. There's no one right way to save the world, and we will perish trying, so we must learn to love the world for all it holds and to practice kinship and with resilience and perseverance. The practice is as much about how we are together as it is about whatever aim we are striving toward. Adrienne Marie Brown, social justice leader and healer, in her book, Emergent Strategy, claims that resilience is found all throughout nature, and it is a part of our beautiful, miraculous human nature. She talks about tools for resilience and movements for transformative justice, and communities working to heal, to make the world whole. She writes about the ways well-intentioned communities striving to co-create justice can also break down. Part of resilience is flexibility and embracing mistakes as learning opportunities. When we fall into patterns of publicly shaming and taking down those who make mistakes, resilience is compromised. In our trauma, in our social isolation and political polarization, forgiveness and openness to diverging opinions is vanishing. It takes relationships of trust and intention where we can practice resisting the urge to demonize those we disagree with. Brown offers some helpful questions to ask in this practice. First, ask why, with genuine curiosity, followed by real listening. When someone holds a contrary opinion, makes a mistake, tells a falsehood, fails to own up to a hurtful action, ask why, and really listen for the possible answers rather than coming to oversimplified conclusions, demonization, or dehumanization. Second, ask what can be learned from this. In every situation, in every contrary view, in every perceived or real mistake or failure, there is a possibility of learning something transformative and healing. Be open to what that might be. And finally, ask how our real-time actions can contribute to transforming the situation. Sometimes the answer is to wait, to think, to be silent, to listen. Sometimes the answer is to say the difficult truth, to have a difficult but necessary conversation with honesty, with kindness and openness to possibilities for change. The only lasting truth is change. And it cannot be denied that all of our lives have been transformed and changed in the last 2 years. There's no going back to any kind of old normal. There's only moving forward, adapting and transforming, embracing new possibilities. As we listen, seek to learn and contribute to the good, we cultivate resilience. The other operative word at the end of our covenant of engagement is perseverance. When we think about perseverance, we might think about the unwavering pursuit of a goal, like an Olympic athlete, a runner in training, or a scientist pursuing a life-saving vaccine. I imagine how much hard work and intention it must have taken to create in such a short amount of time the vaccines that protect us so well against COVID-19. Sometimes from the outside, perseverance can seem like a steadfast individual effort toward a well-defined goal, but it isn't always so dramatic or targeted, and it is rarely achieved in isolation. Perseverance shows up as well in the ways we stay in community, through uncomfortable conversations, disappointment, failures, and missed opportunities. When have you persevered in your life? Through what challenges and roadblocks have you stayed the course to overcome difficulties? If you're like me, you might give a lot more headspace to the failures, the perceived failures, than you might to the things that you've worked through to get to where you are today. The work of social justice and transformation of collective liberation and dismantling systemic racism and oppression requires resilience and perseverance in community. It means sticking together and staying with it, even when the task seems impossible or the way forward unclear. It means being willing to make mistakes, to learn from them, and to grow. It means building kinship along the way. I recently had a conversation with one of the elders in our community, someone who's been engaged in the work of anti-racism for many decades. They told me they've made so many mistakes and said the wrong thing too many times to count. This wise person said they keep working to build trust in their relationships, to hear and take responsibility for their mistakes, to say sorry, and to keep working to do better. This is what the practice of resilience and perseverance looks like. I see so many of you practicing this personally and collectively in our faith community. Last week, we talked about the many ways that we can live our shared Unitarian Universalist values in the world. Beyond those many ways, and bigger than the values we strive to live, is the way in which we work together toward those ends. Here in this community, where we may agree on our mission, but hold different ideas about how to achieve it, resilience and perseverance comes through the ways that we behave toward one another. When we have an idea about how to live our values as a community, what happens when others don't get on board with our plan? How do we hold ourselves accountable in relationship as we work together to build the world we dream about? When we are doing the work and we disagree about how things should be done, when we inevitably lose our temper, say the wrong thing in a hurtful way, when we are ashamed, embarrassed, discouraged, how do we practice staying at the table with one another in covenant? How do we remain less attached to specific outcomes and more attached to each other? I want to be clear that perseverance doesn't mean beating our heads against the wall or staying in a hurtful situation. There are times when resilience and perseverance mean holding good boundaries, saying no, or walking away. While we affirm and honor each person's inherent worth and dignity, we don't need to accept all behaviors, and we don't need to keep trying to make promises that aren't held mutually. In covenantal community, we need to think about what is true, helpful, inspiring, necessary, and kind for ourselves as well as for others. In this covenantal community, we practice repairing our broken bonds, our fractured agreements again and again, so that we can carry our bonds of resilience out into the wider community, into our work, into our homes, into our extended families, and our civic life. We practice resilience and perseverance with our congregational relations team that can help us talk through conflicts. We practice resilience and perseverance with the Anti-Oppression Task Force, moving at the speed of trust to examine where we can dismantle white supremacy culture within our institution. We practice resilience and perseverance in our willingness to try new things, like our faith formation hour, to listen to feedback and adapt to new realities. We practice resilience and perseverance in our covenant groups and small group ministry, where we listen deeply and ask important questions. We practice resilience and perseverance with our community partners, asking what is needed and striving to serve with humility. In the work of living our mission, of nurturing the human spirit and making the world whole, may we continue to weave the bonds of kinship through our covenant and in the work of transformative justice. May we savor the beauty of the world with all its complexity and messiness, making mistakes and learning from them. In the building of beloved community, may we hold sacred the practice of resilience and perseverance wherever we engage. May it be so.
As we extinguish the chalice, please join in saying these words. Though the flame is extinguished, we carry with us the warmth of community, the light of truth, and the fire of commitment until we are together again.
Oh
as one we pledge ourselves to greater service, with love and justice strive to make us free.
May we savor the world in all its beauty and complexity. May we continue to build and rebuild relationships of trust with resilience and perseverance so that we can continue to co-create the world of peace, justice, equity, and love each of us longs for. Go in peace. Go making peace.